Yeah, yeah, yeah. So many lies that you hear from the net, they don't get her respect. She reporting the truth, not a check. You want an unbiased opinion straight from the chest, not a bit accomplice or someone here for a check. Tune in, these are thoughts from a lawyer on a mission who goes so hard it's like she works on commission. Trolls in the comments might say she tripping cause they lack the knowledge, they don't know they missing. Got a couple current events that you like, wanna know about law from the eyes. Tired of all these blogs running lies because their agendas are disguised. Tune in to the intellect, cause I'm sure y'all missing all the facts of the case that she steady is gifting. Someone here for the people, man, it's so uplifting. If you ain't subscribed yet, then you just omitting facts.
Hello, everyone. It is Pam Esquire, the Law Intellect. I'm reporting live from Miami. Thank you so much, Queen Shadina. Thank you so much for giving the super chat before we could even get started. That's what I'm talking about. I appreciate all the support. She said, thank you, Pam. Let's get off on the good foot. No pun intended. You know what? I'm not fooling with you. I'm not fooling with you, but I appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. I don't even, what is it? Eve has many faces, 3248. Thank you so much for the super chat. If you guys could be so kind as to do your girl a favor and hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. I got a bone to pick with you, intellects. Like, you guys got me down here in Miami for all of these shenanigans, because you know there's always some type of shenanigans at these court hearings. But I'm going to try to stick to the testimony today. Milagro Gramz testified. As many of you know, Milagro Gramz was sued by Megan Pete. There's an allegation of her promoting allegedly, that's allegation, promoting a deep fake video of her. Apparently yesterday they played it, and they played it in the opening. I wasn't there yesterday. She started her testimony, she being Milagro, she started it yesterday. She finished it today. So she was literally all day today. All day. And there's also a accusation of defamation as well. But we're going to get into it. Very, very, very interesting. A lot of ebbs and flows in this case. So I knew it was going to be something. As soon as this started, soon as the case started, the attorney gets up. So for you guys that don't know, of course, because it's Meg has the burden, and so she's bringing the case. She's the one who brought the lawsuit. So her team called Milagro as their first witness. So they called her in their case in chief, as opposed to waiting for the defense, which is Milagro, to put on their case after the plaintiff rests, and then they cross-examine her. They decided strategically, I assume for whatever reason, they decided to call her in their case. So it was very interesting because as you will see, a lot of the testimony that we went over today was a lot of text messages and audio and voice messages and her lives, and it was a lot of that. Okay. But immediately when the doors of the courts were open, the first question that Milagro's attorney asked was, well, first of all, let me go back. Before the jury came out, apparently one of the jurors had a question, and this is how I kind of knew that, even though we are online, so we know a lot of the back and forth, we know about the Tory Lanez trial, we've all argued it, everyone has their positions. I think there is somewhat of an assumption that everybody knows what's going on with this stuff, but there really are people that are oblivious to this. They are not online, they're not watching commentators, They're not watching academics. They're not watching Joe Budden. Like they don't know what's going on. So before the jurors came out, there was a question of they were confused about all these names, like all the names. So there was testimony about, of course, Daystar Peterson, which is the real name of Tory Lanez. However, they didn't know, like is his name Tony or Tory? Sunstar Peterson, which is the father. So they wanted to know, like, well, who is that? Who is he? Who is Kelsey? Is the best friend of the so and so? It was just, it lets you know that there was a lot of testimony that was given, and they were obviously getting lost in the sauce. So I knew either it felt like perhaps they were getting hit with a bunch of information, and they were almost, instead of it being fed to them like we're just teaching you this like a 5-year-old, it was almost perhaps an assumption maybe that people knew who these people were. So that was the first piece of information. Like, you might want to figure, let them know who everybody is, because that's important, obviously. Who they didn't know people's pseudonym. Who is this person? Who is Meg Thee Stallion? Who are these people? Okay, so that was like the first thing. Then when Milagro's attorney gets up, not Milagro's attorney, I'm sorry, Meg Thee Stallion's attorney, because this is their case in chief, gets up, and the first question he starts asking is, have you talked to bloggers? Have you talked to reporters? Have you talked to the press? And then when she was like, no, I haven't talked to anyone. So when you went to lunch yesterday, did you talk to anyone? She's like, well, I went in the lunch, the cafeteria area that they have, and there were a lot of people that came in there, and I knew some of the people from online or whatnot. So that was like the beginning of, that they're watching your every move. They're watching everything that you do. So then she turns around the office. You didn't talk to that gentleman in the back? I'm like, she's like, I mean, we might have chit-chatted for a minute, but I don't know. I said, okay, I see where this is going here. So then once they go through all of the rigmarole, and she's like, I didn't really talk to any about this case. I didn't talk to anybody about this. Then they kind of just start moving in with the questioning. So like I said, a lot of the questioning, this is just to summarize, so before I get into it, a lot of the questions were just text messages. And if you follow Milagro, you probably have seen some of this stuff before. Posts from Twitter, some clips from her lives. It was things of that nature. And ultimately, what they were getting at, and again, I'm just going to summarize, is there was all this evidence. Tory Lanez was found guilty, but yet you're saying that Meg perjured herself and she lied on the stand, almost like he wasn't, like he's been proven to be guilty by a jury, but you keep going around saying that he's not guilty and he didn't do it. So that's kind of like the generalization. Yesterday they talked about, I guess, the deep fake video. So apparently there were, and allegedly, because I wasn't there was evidence that was presented that Meg had a video. Well, it wasn't her video. It was somebody did an AI video. Apparently they posted it on X. Milagro liked it, and she sent people to her likes. And the way the statute is, it's supposed to be where if you promote it, then you are basically a part of it. So you don't have to make it. You don't have to create it. You don't have to physically share it. If you like it, then, or send people there, like a promotion of the video. So people were saying yesterday that was somewhat proven. Again, I wasn't here yesterday, so that was mainly what went into yesterday. And apparently her argument was originally she thought it was real and it was something that's of interest. People care about things that have to do with that type of situation, being in that position. But she also testified, I know today, that she said she was hoping that it wasn't real. She said she thought it was AI. She was like, she was hoping that it wasn't real, that somebody would put something out there like that or whatnot. But that's that whole deep fake video point. So the other points, like I said, they went through ad nauseum just about all the things that she has said on the internet related to Meg, even though Tory obviously was found guilty. So one of the things they were asking about, so they start out putting up this timeline. So the timeline starts, and then I guess they just went through all these different text messages until you get to, a certain point. So maybe that was the guideline to try to keep it flowing or trying to make it look like it's flowing. I don't know how successful that was, but I think that was the point of it. So they show, let me see. It was like a text. For those of you that don't know, Sunstar Peterson is Daystar's father, or Tory's father. So they show like a text where Sunstar asked to talk to Millie. So Milagro. So that was like the first text, asked to talk to him, and asked to talk to her off the record. So they go through all of this about, well, how many times have you talked to Sunstar? How many DMs, how many phone calls, how many texts did you have? What do you mean by off the record? And she's like, well, sometimes when people want to give you information, they don't want you to divulge certain information to them. And she basically was saying, my lips are sealed. I won't tell whatever you want to tell me off the record. So then they were trying to elicit, you wanted this to be private. He didn't want anybody to know that you guys were talking. And she said, no, I don't think that he didn't want anybody to know that we were talking. It just may have been information that he gave me that he wanted, to be quiet. And I was letting him know that whatever information, that your secret is safe with me. So they had her reading all the messages. When she was reading these messages, y'all, she was reading them how I read them on here. They'll say, question, hey, Millie, how are you doing, daughter? Because a lot of the text messages, apparently there became like a familiarity where she described the relationship with Tory's father. Like, they didn't just talk about Tory all the time. They became a kind of like, she said her father passed away, so he almost became a mentor or a father figure. So it came to like calling her daughter. And when at first she was questioning about, well, why is he calling you daughter? And he don't even know you like that. And she's like, well, he's the man of God. And, so that's just how he talks. Then like later on, it started turning into like, I love you at the end of the text. And so that's when she kind of explained, hey, he was a father figure. We talked about more than just Tory. It wasn't just Tory. We talked about other things. And so she was like, that's basically how they kind of developed and grown over time with their relationship. But when she was reading those text messages, they had her read all the text messages, and she was animating. She was reading them like, hey, hi, Millie, we need to talk. So they go back and forth. Well, what did he want to talk about? It's like, she said, I was willing to talk about whatever he wanted to talk about. And so what they would do is, if she seemed like she would say one thing, they were trying to impeach her. So she's done 2 depositions. One deposition, and they were videotaped. So one deposition was 7 hours. One deposition was like 2 hours. So all throughout, she would say one thing, and then if it was even slightly off or seemed like it was slightly different, they would have a clip where they asked the exact same question in a deposition, and they were showing maybe it was off some, or she said with the public situation, she said, no, he knew that I was talking, that I wanted, that it wasn't no secret, because she said she was online when she got a DM from Tory or the father. And so she said she was online and she was like, hey, is this Tory trying to contact me? So they knew. So she said, so he knows it wasn't anything I was trying to keep private, that we were talking. She said, but it was the off the record. I wasn't just going to put it out there if he told me you off the record. So she said, when you have sources, they need to know that they can trust you. So you got to let them know, hey, off the record, we can talk. So then she ends up, they put up the deposition clip of her saying that he wanted to keep it private. So of course that looks like the opposite of what you just said about privacy. So that's what they were doing a lot of with the deposition. Like they were trying to impeach whatever she said, because I'm going to be honest, she presented well. Like she articulated well. She answered the questions, and they gave her, because they called her in the case in chief, and they were doing a bunch of direct questions. So she was able to talk and clarify everything. And some of her answers, you were like, that's okay. I could kind of see that. Like some of her, it wasn't like a cross-examinations where I'm like, you put that out there because you wanted to humiliate Meg. Isn't that right? You knew that she didn't do it. A jury says she didn't do it, right? To elicit yes or no's. It was generally, well, why did you say that? And then she could literally explain herself. And some of her explanations were like, okay, I could totally see that. So, yeah. So it was just, but we'll get into that. So then it was like a message they put up from an ex-boyfriend named Quentin Austin, I guess. He was like an ex-boyfriend. It was a text message. And she said, I guess she was in touch with him around that time. And apparently somebody put out, it was a message where I guess Tory mentioned her in a song. Some of you guys might know about it. I haven't heard it. But Tory mentioned her in a song. So the guy was like, oh, basically, you big time. You big time. So they were trying to make that like, oh, he put you on a song. And she's like, no, I wasn't on a Tory song. He just referenced me in a song. So then they were like, oh, but he called you out and you got excited, didn't you? It's like, I mean, yeah, it was pretty cool that he called me out or whatnot. So they made a little bit of a big deal of that. Then September 25th of 2020, there was a message, and they were talking about some public information. So of course, in the message, so they asked, well, what information did you have that wasn't public? And she was basically explaining she has a tip line, and people were calling in, and they would say if they heard something, then they would let her know. Like if they heard something about Meg Thee Stallion, they would call her and tell her about it. So she was getting a lot of information from this tip line. So they were like, well, how do you know these people are credible? Like what are your tips to know that these people that are giving you the information, what's your key to investigating it? Huh? Like how you investigating any of this stuff if these random people just calling you or whatever. So she said that she doesn't take, and she says that later in cross, that she doesn't just take what everybody says and just go with it. She says she does try to verify. But yeah, so then they break down, they go back to the ex-boyfriend text, and apparently she says, I can't even flex like I want to though. About, I guess, the name being in there or whatever. And she said, meaning she felt like things were shaking up, and she felt like people were knowing that Megan Thee Stallion was being dishonest and that she had information, but she couldn't talk about it. And she did say that none of the information that she put on her platform was done by Tory telling her, like, hey, I need you to talk about this. It was done on her own volition. So she, you know, they kept trying to list it like the relationship that you had. You were basically on the team. They kept saying that you were on the team. You were feeding them information. You were the mouthpiece on the team. And she's like, no, I wouldn't say I was on the team. I'm just a commentator like everybody else. I give my opinion and I pose things as questions. And sometimes when I pose things as questions, you know, people respond and get their own, you know, they make their own decisions based off of the information that I put out. So then I guess on September 25th, 2020, they put up another text, which was, I guess it was Daystar's album release. And it was a listening party. And she was talking to him about the project. And it was like a text message about that. Then September 26th, 2020, there was a text from Sunstar and asked to talk to her. And that's when the first about my daughter. And they were like highlighting, why is he calling you my daughter? Why is he calling you your daughter? And then it was a reference about a Zoom call. They were supposed to get on a Zoom call. And they're like, what's the Zoom call about? So apparently, I guess Sunstar was going to start some type of, this is according to her testimony, Sunstar was going to start a podcast. And he was doing, he sings or something himself. And he does book writing and all of that. And so they were going to discuss that because apparently at some point, as we'll see later, he wanted her to market some of this on the platform. And so then in the text, I guess when he first reached out to her, she said she was excited because she thought she was going to get an exclusive interview when it comes to whenever she talked to Sunstar for the first time. She thought, oh, I'm going to get a exclusive interview. And but the call, I guess, was brief. And he was saying that he was just very appreciative. All he said to her was he was very appreciative that she was out here and she was seeing. She was open-minded about Tory because Tory was online getting bashed and she was out here, you know, really seeing the good, I guess, in him and seeing it from a different lens. And he would say things like, things are going to come out. You're going to find out later. But he didn't necessarily always give the specifics on information that they may have had that was going to exonerate Tory. Thank you so much, Kat Williams, for the super chat. How you've been on my screen, and I just had to start getting through this because I'm like my pen ran out of ink. Thank you, Deborah, for the super chat. You say, hey, Pam, thanks for keeping us up to date. I'm trying because some of this stuff, I'm telling you, it was a snooze fest. I tried, you know, I'm always thorough, but it still was a snooze. It was, some of it was like, whoo. It was just a lot of, it felt like, this is what it felt like, guys. It really felt like they were almost trying to retry the case. That's what it was feeling like. So at one point, there were audio of the shots being fired. At one point, it was Kelsey's snippets of her interview was played. At one point, towards the end, they read 15 minutes of her testimony from the trial into the transcript. So it was just so much. And I think a lot of people got the same out of it, that the way it was being presented was it was interesting. So anyways, so they put up another Depp video and it was like, and they asked her a question and she was like, Sunstar talks in parables on the calls. He would hint at things that spoke of his innocence, but he never really said certain things. Said like, again, you're gonna see. Just hold up. You're gonna see. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. You're gonna see, but never really said anything because they was trying to see like what details did his father give you? Did he give you any details about it? Did he give you any details about his testimony? That's another thing they kept bringing up of you're saying Meg lied on the stand, but we don't know what Daystar Peterson will say because he chose not to testify. And a lot of that choosing not to testify kept coming up. And we all know in a criminal case, you have the right to not testify. Like it's not your case. They have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that you did it. So that kept coming up like you believe everything he say, but he didn't even want to come under oath and testify. But Meg came under oath and she actually did testify. So almost like by default, you should be believing her or something. It was just the way I'd have presented in a different way, but you guys know it was just a lot. So then on September 20th, it was a text from someone named Emil, and they were like, I think they were trying to make it seem like, and I'm speculating, that this was from they were talking about Sunstar Peterson. So this is the text. Star, stay shouting you out, LOL. So I think they put it up there because it didn't make any other sense to put it up there, that they thought it was Sunstar Peterson, like he out there on air, not like, I want to give my girl Milagro, my girl Mila, because that's what he called her. I want to give my girl Mila a shout out or something. And then when he puts the text up, Milagro was like, that's for Star Terrain. Like that wasn't even for Sunstar Peterson. And it's like a big influencer. And I guess the guy Star Terrain was like, I F's with Mob Radio heavy. And that's the only conclusion I can get for why they even put that up, because otherwise it didn't make sense. So they asked her, like, what did you understand that he messed with Mob Radio? And she said, I understood it that means he likes my show, my show. But it just didn't make sense. I'm like, that's not even from Sunstar. I think they assumed that's what it was because they said Star. But again, I'm speculating. Then it was a voice note they played where I guess Milagro was saying if he didn't lie to me talking about Tory, when we personally, I want to fight because he told me we were going to be vindicated. I sound like Meg now. He said, because he said he was just basically, she was saying like in a voice message that Tory better not be lying to her. So of course they use that as if Tory was feeding information, alleging or trying to infer that Tory was trying to feed some information. That's why she said that. So then they asked how she learned about the whole shooting. She said she learned about it on TMZ. TMZ had video, so that's how she knew that something happened. And then they went back to what did Tory say about getting vindicated? On a phone call, they showed that there was some phone call between him and the father and her on three-way. But again, she said that was them saying they appreciate her not running with the narrative like everyone else, saying she did it. That Tory did it, and that she was being the open-minded one out here fighting for him or whatever. I know it's getting boring. Let me try to go through some of this because I was like, Lord have mercy. So then they kept asking, well, did Sunstar tell you what happened? She kept saying, no, he didn't really talk about that. He didn't tell me what happened because he kind of figured, she said she's speculating, but she figured that he wouldn't want to do anything to jeopardize his son's case. So like, that's how she figured why he would like talk to her and say different things. Like he started telling a story about he was in the studio, and that's when Meg called him while she was at Kylie's house, told him to come to Kylie's house and urgent. And then she was getting into the story. And then that's when Meg's attorney objected at his own question and was like, it was a narrative. I need her to stick to the question. So she was about to tell the whole story on what supposedly happened and how it started that night. And then she got stopped. And she was trying to say, like, he would get to a point, Sunstar would get to a point and stop talking. And he would, like, maybe get to, she didn't say where it was specifically he was stopping the story, but he was stopping the story. And then he would just stop talking. So they were, like, trying to get to, well, what point did he stop talking? What point did he stop talking? So then it was another text. It was a lot of Sunstar, the father. It was a lot of his text messages. So then apparently there was a Miami trip where she was going to do an interview or maybe talk with Sunstar. And it was in Miami, and they were pre-planning this Miami trip. And he called her daughter again. And he texts, that's what he said. Oh, I'm so sorry that I've adopted you as my daughter, LOL. And so, of course, they're utilizing that to say the familial relationship. Like, you were a part of this family and you were not unbiased, because what Milagro kept saying is that she had an open mind and she was willing to see what happened. But she's saying what turned her off was Megan said first she stepped on glass, and then we found out that she really didn't step on glass. So she told the police she stepped on glass. Then she went to the hospital and she still told them to step on glass, that they stepped on glass. So it was just when all of this stuff started happening. Then with Kelsey, it was something about with Kelsey, she half believed what Kelsey said. So she was saying when her conclusion when all of this stuff was happening was that she just didn't believe him, but it wasn't really based on anybody telling her, like Sunstar, because of their relationship or him paying her for that. It was just because that's the conclusion she came to when she viewed all the evidence. That's the gist of what she was trying to say. And then they pull up the infamous DNA. Now, you guys heard of the DNA where they said it was inconclusive, meaning that he could not be included, but he could not be excluded. So when I went to the trial, Milagro went to the trial as well. She kept notebooks. They were pulling up her own notebooks and putting it on the thing. She said she had 2 full notebooks of her notes. So they will pull it up. So when she went online and she said something like Tori was excluded from the DNA, in her notebooks, they highlighted that when the testimony from the expert from the DNA, he said it was inconclusive. He couldn't be excluded, and he wasn't included, but Tori couldn't be excluded. And it was right in her notes that he couldn't be excluded. So they used that like, well, that he couldn't be excluded, but you still went out there and you told the people that he was excluded. But then she explained herself, which is true. On the magazine, they said it wasn't his DNA. But then I think it was on the gun itself, it was 4 different potential people, and they were male, and he couldn't be included or excluded. So she said that was her interpretation of it. So they pulled it. They literally were going through a lot of the stuff that had to do with the trial. And then they were telling her, I guess their point was, you had all this information that would prove that he did it. But in your mind, regardless of what information you saw, even if you were sitting there all day at the trial, you had it in your head, because of this relationship, because it was beneficial to you, that you didn't care what was said out here. You still would report it favorable to them. Her stance was that's not what it was. She really believed, based on the evidence, that he didn't do it. And she said it like 4 or 5 times. And she really just didn't believe that he did it. And then they play an audio that she had from February 23rd, 2022. I think it was like one of her lives. And it says she's like on this audio, the DNA test was not on the weapon, and that's a fact. And she was like, sue me if I'm lying. Like she's like, if I'm lying, then sue me. She's like, I talked to my sources that live on the moon, and they said that it's kind of premature. She thought it was premature. So it was, let me back up. So it was a text message about the DNA that came out. Apparently, academics is the one that put the text message out about the DNA. This information was information, according to Meg's people, that had not happened in trial yet. So somebody leaked the information. And so apparently, because she said she had heard it already, they were like, oh, you guys have the same sources, but she didn't put it out there. She said academics did. She thought it was put out prematurely, but I guess once it came out in trial, that was more so when she talked about it. But that was a big contentious situation on when that was posted about the DNA as well. But yeah, it was a bunch of audio and text. So then they bring up, well, I guess when Tory's lawyers, it must have been a big thing in court where Tory's lawyers were defending, like trying to defend the leak. And they said it couldn't have been a leak because that's not what the report said. So I guess they were using the defense. When the leak came out, it must have been a big thing that happened in court. And so the way Tory's attorneys defended it at that time was by saying, like, well, it couldn't have been leaked from us because that's not what it said, which is basically that text that said that he was excluded. His own team knew that it didn't say it was excluded. They said that he couldn't be excluded, but it was inconclusive. So it could have been, it could not have been. They just couldn't, they didn't have enough DNA to be able to tell for sure. So yeah. So then she said her and like academic and all of them, I guess they got the same sources. And then they asked, well, is this a human being that you can even prove is credible? So that was a big issue because you're talking about defamation, because of course with defamation, if it's a reckless disregard of whether it's true or not, then you can be, they can try to hit you with defamation. So they're like, are you vetting these people? How do you know? People could just randomly call you and say, hey, look, we got some information on Meg, and you just viewing that as credible. So they were just going against how she even gets any of this information. They were trying to challenge her on the legitimacy of any of the information that she gets. So then they asked her who her source was. And that's when she was saying she doesn't know who the source was that gave her the information about the DNA. And she brought up like the hotline that she had that I just told you about earlier. She said a lot of people, they call and they'll say, hey, I got information about Meg, but she doesn't really know. And then they showed a video depth, of course, of her. They had another clip where they asked her again who her source was with this information. And they asked her, did she know who the source was? And she said no on the video depth. And then they asked her, they said, so this could be a complete setup. Like they could just be making this stuff up. And she was like, could be. So that's what she said on the deposition, that, it could be. So then they asked her, was there anything that Sunstar told you not to reveal? And she said, yes, something about a reporter. And then they talked about that Miami trip again. They was kind of going back and forth with certain things and certain details. And she said they asked her, was she around Tori when she went to Miami to interview Sunstar? And she was like, no, Tori was around, but no, he was not. Like, that's not who I was really talking to. I guess he was around or something, and he was in the studio. And so she did say Sunstar told her things that he heard about what happened. And she said she didn't put the stuff out. She didn't report it. And they asked her why. She said, well, I have to take into account, that it is his father. So, of course, basically saying almost like because it's his son, then he may be more biased and favorable to the son. So that's why she really didn't report on it. Then they show a text of Sunstar saying happy Thanksgiving with his long colloquies, and then I love you, Mila. And so it was just a lot of Sunstar texts, like with her relationship, I guess, with him. So then it was a text where Sunstar says, Mila, send me the information ASAP so I can get it to your lawyers. And they like, so apparently then there was the email. So there was a text and then there was the email. So the email was, I guess she had been getting all this information on Meg. And so some of the information was like, Kelsey's mother, I guess the mother and sister had an interview where they were saying that the stuff that was being put out there wasn't the truth or whatever, and how Kelsey was kind of being portrayed online and what she was going through. So she had a link, I guess, to that interview. Then I guess she had a conversation with one of Meg's good friends at the time, somebody named Chelsea. Which sent her a message, and she was a follower on my radio, so she sent her messages, and she was saying something about her ex. I guess she had an ex-boyfriend that made a post that implied that Meg had physically assaulted him. She mentioned a mugshot from Meg. She said she sent some screenshots and different videos. And so it's like, of course, when you have attachments on your emails, all of that stuff was attached. So this was information. So of course they're using that to say, like, you were a part of the team. Like, you were out here, you're saying you're unbiased, but you out here in these streets collecting information about Meg, and you're trying to give it to him so he can give it to his team. That's what's really happening. That's what it looked like, to us. You remember all that? Yeah. Y'all talking about married men. I'm about to stick to these notes. Y'all talking about, oh Lord. So then they get into there was something in there as well on the email about the girl Chelsea. Somebody said she slept with somebody, but they were like, no, that's her guardian. The guy Chelsea said she had a guardian. So then now we got this mental health issue that came up. And so that's when she can't, it came up like, you were challenging her mental health. You don't know anything about her medical records, but you were saying that something was wrong with her. And they were literally playing videos of her calling Meg retarded, like on her lives and stuff, saying like something got to be wrong with her. I mean, some of y'all done seen the lies. Some of the lies be a little rough. So then she said she had an open mind until she said she still had an open mind even when she knew Tori and Tori had recognized her. She said until she heard Kelsey, like heard all this stuff about Kelsey, and said she said when she heard Kelsey's statement, like video statement that was at the trial, for those of you that know, Kelsey went in September, like right before the trial almost, because the trial was in December. She gave her rendition of what happened. She blamed Tory. She said Tory shot Meg. Just like the text messages, she had her lawyers there. She had her man there. She had all of that. She got to trial and it was, I don't know. What's your name, girl? Can I plead the fifth? Can I plead the fifth? I don't know. I don't want to say nothing because some of the stuff I said was a lie. So it was a painful testimony. And so she was saying, I guess, during that time, when she started really listening to a lot of the stuff, she started saying, you know what? Maybe, Kelsey is looking a little suspect. Then it was they would ask her generally, like, what make you say that? Like, I did not understand why they was letting her tell her story. Like, they're like, so why did you say that you didn't believe with Kelsey? They said with Sean Kelly, they believed, I think she said, certain aspects of the case, and with Kelsey, she believed certain aspects of the case. So the attorney's like, well, what did you have to, what did you have, for you to believe what you believe? And then she would just be able to tell her story. Like, she said on the stand that she didn't tell because she was scared. But then you get Sean Kelly, who took the stand, who didn't corroborate her testimony, talking about Meg, said the facts just weren't lining up with the story. Said it just didn't match at the end of the day. And Daystar didn't have defensive wounds. And then she talked about, she said, oh, this is stuff that I learned in criminal justice. So she's a criminal justice major. I don't know if she degreed, but she went to school for criminal justice. So she let the jury know, like, based on what I've learned in criminal justice, if somebody gets on there and it doesn't match, she challenged what she learned about people being credible and not credible. And she said after people were flip-flopping on their testimony, after you had Meg flip-flopping on her story, after you had her get on Gayle King and lie through her teeth, after she said, I guess she said she wasn't drunk, but then she did say she was drunk. I guess it was Kelsey and EJ said she was drunk. She said her credibility was shot. So she was literally, the thing about it was this. If she had on, and this is the truth, and y'all know how I feel about this whole case, because I just felt like the way people treated Meg was just unnecessary. Like, I stick to that. Like, okay, you don't like the conclusion. I do wrongful conviction, so I understand what, the outcry is for Black men and women. It's not just Black men, it's women in there that's innocent as well. But the way it was always portrayed online, that was mother effort it. Like, it was almost like when it was getting played, it was a shock factor. It was people that was like, who just used the word ninja like that? Every other word, who cussing? She was the polar opposite on the stand. It was like the radio is kind of like your alter ego and you just going off. But then on the stand, she was very articulate, very clear. She answered the questions and they just gave her so much leeway to explain herself. So at one point, Meg, of course, said the reason why she lied was because this was around the time of George Floyd. So she was concerned that if she said, oh, there was a gun involved, then it might be a George Floyd situation. That is what she testified why she lied about the glass and about the shooting. Well, Milagro flipped it and she was like, well, I feel like Meg should understand how I feel then. There are Black men who go to prison all the time because of the injustices. And so I feel like if there are these type of discrepancies, that somebody should be out here fighting for. I really do believe, I totally believe that he didn't do it. And so I'm out here fighting the same injustice. You know how black men are. You brought up George Floyd. So you already know. So it's like she was able to use, because there was such open-ended questions, she was literally able to tell her story. And even how she explained it, even though I was there. So I know that they had enough information based on my opinion. I see why the jury went the way they went. But the way she explained it, you understand. If she came out and explained it in that way, honestly, you would probably respect it more. The issue was, it was the presentation with, and then the people that were in the chat who were like going off and they go after you and they miserable. It was like, it's almost like inciting a riot online. And so she's consistently being attacked for years over this. And I think this is what led to this point. But the way she explained it, be it true or false, be it she just was able to make this sound real good, it made a bit more sense understanding how it was coming off, online all these years. But yeah. So then they go through, like, she had a tweet that said when he was found guilty, she had a tweet, and I'm paraphrasing, this man get 20 years. What if this was your brother, your cousin, your uncle, your so-and-so? It was basically the evidence was incredible. It was inconsistencies. The DNA, like, she put all of the different issues. She felt like, she said, but y'all stupid ass basically cheering this, even though they didn't even prove their case, type thing. So that was her explanation with, I guess when she was young, she said her mother was in prison, I guess her whole life. So she was able to get this information out as to why she has the feelings that she has about trying to protect a black man. But again, Meg's whole thing is, you ain't trying to protect no black man. This is lucrative for you. You have a relationship with them and you was getting paid for it. Because y'all know that it was alleged, it wasn't even a whole lot. It was like $3,000. They was able to see with some Zales. Then yesterday, somebody told me it was information about rooms being paid for, flights or whatnot, I guess, to get to the trial. I think that came up yesterday. Again, I wasn't there, but yeah. So then they asked her, are you saying Meg lied on the stand? And she was like, based on that tweet she did about uncredible witnesses, people, whatever, the credibility of witnesses. They asked her, are you saying Meg lied on stand? She said, no, I was referencing multiple people in my tweet. I wasn't just talking about her. I was talking about multiple people. So then they put up the debt video again. And the debt video, they did the same thing. They asked the question, when you talk about non-credible witnesses, are you referring to Meg? And I guess in the debt video, she said, yeah, that's exactly who I'm talking about. But on the stand today, she said she was talking about a multitude of people. But in the debt video, she did admit that she was talking about Meg when she talks about uncredible people. So again, they were pulling up. Thank you. They were pulling up the video clips from the depositions in order to do what's called impeaching her, which is to show that you're not testifying the same that you did in these depositions, that now you're doing in this trial. Like, now all of a sudden, you got the better answers at this trial. You know what I'm saying? But that ain't what you were saying in this deposition. So then they asked her, she goes on to the whole, they told her, you said multiple times that she didn't get shot. Are you saying she stepped on glass means that she didn't get shot? And so apparently she said the report said that she stepped on glass. And then allegedly she had a conversation at some point. I believe it was with Sunstar. She had a conversation with somebody of which before this incident happened, she allegedly stepped on glass a couple of days before or something. And they thought this might have been a re-injury. So she mentioned that. So she started talking about again all the reports, and she said she stepped on glass, and she said she was going hard because she said if she says she does not doubt that she was hurt, she just doesn't believe how she got hurt, is what she's saying. So she can't dispute that some guns went off because there were like casings and everything in the case. So she couldn't really refute that. But she believes what Sean Kelly said, who was the witness that was neutral, that didn't know anybody, that it was shot fired in the air. So she basically was not shot in the foot. Or there weren't bullet fragments in the foot. So then they put up another video of her death. And the question was Megan lying when she testified at the time that she got shot? And the answer was, I believe she was. So then the question was Meg lying when she said Tory shot her? And the answer was, I believe she was. Then the question was, are you in a position to say she lied under oath? And then her answer was, I cannot assert that she lied at trial. Then they put up another tweet. And her tweet said, was Meg trying to deceive the court again? The answer is yes. If you ask her, former cameraman, Emil Garcia. So she started talking about there was some type of situation, a lawsuit with her cameraman. So what she kept saying with a lot of this stuff when she would make these tweets was she will form it in a question. And she's like, I'm a commentator. I talk about what my audience wants to talk about. So if they want to talk about Meg, we're going to talk about Meg. And that's just what it is. She's a public figure. I'm not understanding the problem. She's not the only person I talk about. Y'all making it seem like my whole platform is about Meg. It ain't about just Meg. I talk about who my people want to talk about, and that's the type of things that she wants to talk, that they want to hear. And she says she did not feel that they proved the case against Tory. And then she mentioned again the DNA being inconclusive. She said there was information that two women were fighting. And she said she just doesn't believe that they proved the case. And they said, but the jury said he's guilty. She said juries get it wrong all the time. She's like, they get it. You haven't heard of people that get wrongfully convicted? Like, juries get it. People get exonerated every day because juries get it wrong. That don't mean I believe that he did it. So then they put up the jury verdict to go over them saying that he did it and yes, like all the jury. And she's like, okay, I don't agree with the jury. Then they put up the text message from Kelsey. Remember the text message where she immediately after the incident, Kelsey says, help, Tory just shot Meg. They put that up. And they asked her, well, how are you explaining this text message? Like, how you just discounting all this stuff they got to do with this, and then you're saying you unbiased? So how you explaining this text message? She was like, well, I feel like after everything that I've seen about Kelsey, she was just trying to cover herself. So I looked at that like, she looked at that text. They said, but this was happening like in real time at that time. She was like, well, I feel like she was just trying to cover herself. That's how I was looking at it. She was just trying to cover herself because she was basically somehow involved. So then they said, well, why did Tory call and apologize? And she was like, well, I feel like that I don't look at that like it was an apology. And that's when she was able to get out. If the jury didn't know, now they know about her being accused of sleeping with Tori. Tori was sleeping with both of them. She slept with her best friend's man. She was able to tell this whole story. Like, she said, so I felt like he know he was the cause of all of this ruckus, and he was just apologizing for all of this stuff that happened. So what they were doing was just trying to pick up. It's like they put up a bunch of information and they were telling her to, how you explaining this away? How you explaining this away that happened at the trial? How you explaining this and saying that he still didn't do it? This don't persuade you? And she got an answer for every. She had better answers than Tory defense attorney. I think she might have should have just gone ahead and been co-counsel. Because then they showed the pit. They put the picture of the gun. They put the picture of the gun that they, of course, when they found the gun, they said that it was hot to the touch and all of that. So then they said, you do know this gun was found under the seat where Tory was. She said, well, according to the information, the testimony that came out, he wasn't originally sitting in that seat. There were plenty of people that were sitting in seats. And he said, as you look, the gun is next to a shoe, and that shoe obviously ain't him. So she's looking at the picture and she see like a woman's shoe. And she was like, people could have switched positions at any time. So that don't persuade me neither. And then she said on the phone call, you don't interpret that when he said, I'm so sorry, man, I was drunk and da 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 da. You don't interpret that as him apologizing for what he did. She said, no, I don't interpret that as apologizing. And the reason why I don't is because if somebody shot my best friend, I wouldn't be on the phone that calm. I'd be like, first of all, I don't even know if I would have answered the phone if they would have called me. But the fact that she was just calm and collected about it when somebody just shot her best friend, she was like, her tone, she was like, just everything that it was makes me feel like that's not what he was apologizing for. Because again, if they was best friends, she should have been a little bit more rah-rah. She should have been like, what you calling me for? Like, you just popped my best friend. What's up with that? She believes that he was just sorry because he is the one that caused the entire situation. So then they put up the text message again of him saying that he was sorry. Meg was probably, Proly, was never going to talk to him again and all of that. And she like, listen, I told you what I think it is. I don't think that that's what he was apologizing for. So that's what it is. So they put up the infamous Shade Room post, that post, where I think it was Meg's producer or something, said the bullets matched up with the post was shared to it was posted, I guess, from whoever this producer was, but then it was reposted on the Shade Room. And in the post, it was talking about the bullets and how this ninja saying that he ain't do it, but the bullets is matching his gun or something like that. And I'm paraphrasing the post. And under it said, somebody said Kelsey is the one that shot Meg. And from Tori's account, it said, no, Kelsey didn't do it. So they pulled that up there as well. And so she said, basically, is this true? Like, he said, no, he's a celebrity. So I never thought that he really posted that. Celebrity, essentially celebrities don't run their own posts. So then they kind of asked her, like, well, did you part of the team? So did you ask him at some point, did you do it? Like, are you the one that decided to post this? That it was Kelsey? That Kelsey didn't do it? Like, was that you? You part of the team? She kept saying, stop saying I'm part of the team. I'm just a commentator. I was not a part of the team. I didn't know everything that was going on. And so then they put up her notes again. So this was the first time you sat in the court and you took all these detailed notes. And she was like, yeah, she said, I never doubted that a gun was shot, but I just don't equate that to someone being shot. So even though, because they talked about the gun being hot to the touch, okay, I never said the gun wasn't shot. I just said wasn't nobody shot. Like, I don't equate that to someone that was being shot. And so she said again, she doesn't feel like she was lying about Meg when she talked. She felt like she's fighting the injustice. That's how she feels. So then they asked her, did you have any input on whether Tory should take the stand? She's like, no. So why you ain't give Tory and his team all these opinions that you got? I was kind of asking the same thing. Like, girl, they might have needed your help because you got explanations for everything. I said, you seem pretty involved in this here trial. Why you ain't give them all this information you got? I said, oh. Then they asked her, like, again about the song and being mentioned, and you were that ingrained where you got mentioned in the song. So then the attorney is like, I mean, you never had anybody else mention you in a song before, have you? And she was like, you know what? I think I have had people mention me in the song a few times. I was like, attorney definitely asked the question he didn't know the answer to. So they kind of like moved along. Because again, the point is just trying to show how intertwined that she was with this family, that a lot of the stuff, it wasn't just you reporting, you were biased. I mean, that's what they're, don't say you were unbiased. They're trying to support that. They're gonna say that they're trying to allege that she was biased. Then they played that video again, and it was July 21st, I think is when she took it, at 25, saying the doctor didn't say she was injured by glass. And they said, did anyone testify that the metallic foreign bodies weren't bullets? And her answer was no. And then they had her like read the medical sheet. So they had her read the medical sheet in the deposition, where it was saying there were 3 major bullet fragments, what the specimens were, that they were bullet fragments, and what the removals were. And then they played a death video that she knew the gun was warm to the touch. There was a bloody towel, that all the rounds in the gun were fired, but you still just don't believe that this lady, that he shot her? She's like, listen, for the 50th time, I just don't believe that he did it. Then on April 10th of 2023, they had a text message, and it was the address to Sunstar. So I guess she testified she was going to his house, and she said she did go to the house. And again, at the end of the text, he says, love you, Mila. I love you too much. And I guess she responded, I love you too. And they said, is this a typical reporter relationship? Like, all these I love yous, is this a typical relationship? And that's when she started explaining, no, as time progressed, they became more familiar. In fact, they barely talked about Tory. They talked about a whole lot of other things, and he became her mentor. So then there was a text from Sunstar giving her the heads up, telling her that Tory was going to post something. Didn't tell her what it was, but like, Tory's going to post something. So I want you to keep an eye on the post before he ends up taking it down. So like directing her to that. So I guess what he would do was like give her information. I like almost like the exclusive if he has certain information. And then there was another post that they put of Meg. So no, I think it was Meg must have posted something like what she got to do or whatever for people to leave her alone. She responded with a post or a tweet that said, basically, I'm gonna keep posting you. She put a picture of Meg, and it said Meg wants to know what she has to do to stop being posted on certain outlets, and says she's gonna Cardi B y'all. So basically, sue y'all. And then she told her, basically, you need to get over it. You getting posted. Like, it is what it is. You gonna get posted regardless. And so Milagro said that the problem Meg had was she took it personal that many people just didn't believe her. So she was taking it real personal that nobody believed, that a lot of people, ain't gonna say nobody, but a lot of people didn't believe that she had actually gotten shot. Then they asked her, she was posting something about Meg on Christmas Eve. So you could see that it was December 24th. So they was like, why are you posting on X about her on Christmas Eve? This December 2024. So they were just trying to show a pattern. This is long past the trial. They were asking her, is there any appellate reasons why you're talking about, why are you talking about this girl still? Like, what is the explanation? It's so far removed from the trial. So why are you still talking about it? And she was like, entertainment news never sleeps. Christmas Eve? What's Christmas Eve? Entertainment news never sleeps. So that's why. So then we go to lunch. So that's all in the morning. So then we go to lunch. And then it was a bunch of drama. But I ain't about to talk about the drama because there's always drama every time we go to the school. But it was a little bit of drama. And the judge had to go check some people in the drama. But we don't talk about the drama later. So they pull up Milagro's Twitter post from January 29th of 2024. And it said, let me go find these receipts of Megan's ex-bestie telling me she wasn't effing Ferris. That's her guardian. So then that's when they get into all the guardian stuff about her challenging and questioning Meg's mental health. And she said, well, I thought the way I think a guardian is, she said, so what, he kept asking, what information do you have that she has a mental health problem? He said, well, listen, I thought when I think of guardian, I think of Britney Spears and I think Wendy Williams. And essentially, Meg be online drinking. She fall out with all these friends. I thought she was a danger to herself. So she thought that. So her attorney was like, guardian could mean an angel or something. Why would you automatically think it's something, that has to do with her needing some type of some help because she got some mental problems? She's like, no, I just looked at her life online and I'm like, oh, that girl got some problems. So that's where I got that from. So then they put up images online that came from her phone from November 10th of 2024. So last year around this time. And it was 2 pictures of Meg's house. So they said, girl, like, why would you have pictures of Meg's house? What would be your point? And she was like, well, they were going to try to dismiss or something that had to do with venue, whether it was proper venue. So she was like, so she looked it up and that's why she went to see, where she was living at. And they were like, but you had an attorney, right? So why would you be the one trying to figure out venue and all of that? So that was her reasoning. So they were like, but you got a picture. Like, why do you need a whole picture of her house in order to show where venue is? So they pulled that from her phone. Now, y'all know one of the issues in this case, too, is deletion of messages. So they keep bringing this up. They brought this out sporadically of how there were supposed to be all these messages. She had a letter of preservation when she got sued with the lawsuit, not to delete anything, and she deleted something. And, she deleted messages anyway. We get into that in a minute. So then they say, You've been suspended on your social media before, haven't you? She said yes, for evasion. So they asked her, well, what do you mean? What does evasion mean? And they allow her to just talk. It wasn't like, she was like, well, that just means, she said, a bunch of people that were Meg fans didn't like her. They didn't like her, how she was presenting her information and how she talked about Meg. So her fans came for her. And basically, the way Twitter is, when they get so many people and so many, that come against your channel, then they'll basically, take your channel or they'll suspend your channel. So what she did was, I think they deleted her account. So what she did was she started a new account. And the community guidelines, just like how YouTube is, if your account gets snatched, you cannot start a new account. So then when she started her new account, the Meg Thee Stallion fans, according to her, they reported her over and over again. So they so then that's how she got evasion. So that's supposed to be where you went against the community guidelines and you went on ahead and you started a whole nother page. So then they kept trying to elicit that she was engaging in misconduct online, but he kept trying to phrase it in ways that was hearsay, and her attorney was on it. Her attorney was objection, hearsay. So eventually he had to abandon the question because he couldn't phrase it in a way to say that essentially you were engaged in misconduct online, and that's why you got your channel snatched. So there was that. So then there was a group message they put up, and that it was like with Tia, and it was like a Tory Lanez source handle. So they have some group message, so they put that up. Said that Tory, I guess is a Tory wants to put it out there like Tory is not on a mission to try to weaponize his fans against Meg. So they wanted to try to get that out there. So this is a group chat. Now, again, this was another message I wasn't understanding why it was really put out there, because she isn't the one that she was tagged in it. Like, she's a part of the group message, but it wasn't anything that she said. So it was like they wanted to get some people, according to Tory Source, that's the name of it. They wanted to get some people to put it out there that Tory is not trying to weaponize his fans against Meg. And so they put that out there. That was one of the texts they put out. And they said it's better for other people to say this instead of Tory. So instead of Tory coming out and saying, listen, I don't want you all to be coming against Meg because of what the verdict is and blah, 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 that it would be better if other people say he's not trying to use his fans in order to weaponize her. So she like, shoot, I was just adding to the group. It wasn't me. So then there was another text put up from Sunstar. He said, this was interesting. Y'all remember this Quan affidavit? And we all thought it just poof, it came from the sky. So apparently, according to this text message from Sunstar, he said that the Quan affidavit wasn't new. He alleges that it was written before Quan even came to trial or came to court that day when he finally showed up. Because remember, Quan was the driver. So allegedly, this affidavit was already written before. It wasn't just something he just came up with. So Milagro, one of her videos, apparently she was going off like Quan came on live and he would do things like say that he needed to be free. Tory didn't do anything, blah, blah, blah. And she went off and she was like, and apparently Quan came into her live at one point. And she like, well, you need to go to the proper authorities. Like, why you out here talking, but you ain't do nothing to help them? And she was like, that in her mind, it showed how much she was out of the loop, because apparently this affidavit, she thought the affidavit, she might have contributed to the affidavit because the way she kind of went off. And it may have been a contribution to, okay, now he out here doing an affidavit. But apparently, according to this text message that happened after she had that whatever exchange with Quan, after the text message, basically Sunstar said that the affidavit was not new. It was written before he came to court, and the prosecution knew about it, but they were fighting against it, and they fought to keep it under seal. And so it just basically was being taken out from under seal. I honestly was not understanding that whole commentary, well, that whole conversation, because you can use an affidavit if you want to, but you can't cross-examine an affidavit. So it's not admissible. Like you can't, I can't just go get an affidavit from somebody, tell them they say what I need them to say, and then I submit it as an exhibit to the court. No, I have the right to confrontation. So you need to bring yourself in here and you're going to testify, and I am going to cross-examine you about what's in this affidavit. So I don't really get that part unless they had the affidavit and they said it's not admissible unless he comes and testify. Now that would make sense. But I wasn't understanding. He alleges it was under seal the whole time, but the prosecutor was fighting to let it in. Honestly, I'd have fought too, because they have the right to confrontation. You can't just come in with affidavits and say whatever you want, and then that just comes and it's admissible. You need to come in unless you done died or something and we just can't get nothing from you. That's a different story. Or you're unavailable. That makes you unavailable and you can't come in. But if you are a live living being and you put something in the affidavit, I should have the right to cross-examine you on that affidavit. But apparently this affidavit was not new. And when it came out, it was because it was allowed to be out from under seal, I guess, allegedly. So then the Meg's attorney says, but in Kelsey's video that she did when she was talking to the police, the original video, she said, sorry guys, she said that Quan had made a statement of money talks. And when he made the statement that money talks, they were, I can't think, like almost alluding that maybe he made this affidavit because, you know, maybe it was some gratuitous. I don't know. So then they go into the whole affidavit. She says she learned about it on social media. And everything I told you about Quan and their back and forth and all of that. Let me see. So then Meg's team was like, did anybody tell you why Quan wasn't the first witness? If he in this affidavit basically saying Kelsey is the shooter, why wasn't he the first witness on the case? I was waiting on that answer too. So why wasn't he the first witness if that's what he said? If he said that in the affidavit, then why was he not Tory's first witness? And she said, I don't know. They were like, but you was a part of the team. Why you ain't know? You was a part of the team. You knew everything that was going on. They was keeping you in the loop. So why didn't Quan come in, and why didn't you know why he didn't testify? And she kept saying, I wasn't a part of the team. I was a reporter. And basically her conversations and her commentary is not always about this case. She talks about other issues. She doesn't just talk about him. So then they asked her, well, what's your most credible source that you believe that Tory didn't do it? Like, what is your most credible source? And she's like, well, my credible source are the preliminary transcripts, me sitting in the courtroom, and documents. That's what I consider as the credible sources. So then that's when they get into the deleted messages. You were served. You knew not to delete the messages. And that's when she said, well, listen here. I ain't get good legal advice. I was being represented by Unite the People, and they ain't give me good legal advice. So I didn't know. So then they put up the screenshot from Lauren LaRosa, you know, from the Breakfast Club. And she had, I guess, and I don't know if that was shared on the shade room or not, but I know it was from her. And it said, I'm told that Meg's team got Zelle records to show payments of posts, like of, different payments. And basically, like, as if being paid to post things for against Meg. And so they showed the list of Zelles, the different payments from Carlisle Peterson, I think it was. And it was, like I said, totaling $3,000. Then it was a video that, and they pulled that up again. And she's talking about when she got the lawsuit, and when that after she got the lawsuit, she talked to Sunstar and she talked to Caesar on the call. So Caesar is the head, I don't know his position, of Unite the People. If you guys don't know, Unite the People is the ones that represent Tory in his appeal. So what they were getting at is, so the first people you call is Sunstar and Caesar. So they really got into the conversation of, you didn't think that was a conflict? So he representing Tory, and now they gonna represent you, and you don't think that was a conflict? And she said the conversation came up, but she basically said, listen here. They said they was gonna represent me pro bono. I don't have no money to go up against a millionaire. I ain't got money like that. So she was like, yeah, I was gonna take that pro bono service. So basically, yeah, if it was a conflict, oh well, that's what it is. Then they show a screenshot where it shows like 4 messages from Sunstar were deleted. So we keep getting to these deleted messages. 4 messages for the Sunstar was deleted. They asked her, do you know what these messages were? She like, no, I don't know. We didn't just talk about Tory. She said it was so long ago. I don't know. She got a new device. And so it may have been, on the new device or whatnot. So then they showed, like, it's a video they play, and people was like snickering because of how she talks, like how she'll talk on like these lives and stuff. So some people were like snickering, but it was like the video, she was like, somebody told her she was mentioned in a song, and she was like, Ninja, tell me God ain't good. Just how she put the stuff, how she was phrasing it or whatever, and that stuff was getting paid. And she was like, they asked her, well, what does that mean? She's like, well, I like I said, I thought it was cool that she was mentioned mentioned in his song. And they asked her, did you ever ask Sunstar anything? And he declined to answer. She's like, no, I don't think so. No. Did he ever tell you Tory's version, I guess, of the story? Said they didn't have many conversations. So one of the things she was saying was, they keep saying that there were thousands of messages that were deleted. And she's like, I didn't have thousands of conversations with Tory, messages with Tory or his father. So, but again, there's an adverse inference that they were able to get, that when the messages were deleted, they probably would be unfavorable to her. So that is, they should basically assume that they were unfavorable to her. So she does have that's against her. And I think it sounds like to me, talking to other reporters there, that the judge may have also adopted the recommendation that another adverse inference goes on in related to Tory deciding that he doesn't want to participate in the deposition. So the 4 questions that he was asked, that they will be adverse against him as well. So like I said, she kind of came in already like fighting her way up. Like, it wasn't like coming in even, you kind of coming in where you're fighting your way up, getting those adverse inferences. So then it was a video that And they asked her, I guess, in the depth, she says, they said, did you have any conversation with Sunstar that were not made public? And she said, yeah, it was about the alleged incident. And that's when they start going again, like, what did he tell you? And then that's when she goes into the narrative again, starting about going to Kylie's house and all of that. And then he cuts her off because I guess she was saying too much. And she said, she said it a few times. She said she believes that Tory is innocent. And that's just what it is. She said Tory never talked to her about the vehicle. He never talked to her about the gun. So they put up a live stream from 2021 where she was making it seem like she knew something, but had to keep it a secret, suggesting, she gets inside information, but couldn't say anything. So, of course, they were making that like, we told y'all she getting this information because that's what she's telling everybody, that she keeping it a secret. She keeping something a secret. So then they asked her, did Tory ever say that he didn't shoot her? And she responded, no. So Tory's never, I guess, flat out said, I didn't shoot her. So then they get back into her mental health. Like, what is her mental status? Have you ever seen her? Have you ever seen her records? Have you ever seen anything about it? So how do you know anything? Why do you keep talking about her mental status? And baby, they showed a video from July of 2024, and it was a live stream. And she had a picture. I was explaining this to Deb. She had a picture of Meg, and it was somebody else. So Meg is kind of towering over this person. And somebody must have said something about fighting her or something. And she was like, y'all think I'll fight her? Do y'all see her? You see that big? Like, she was like, y'all see how big she is? She said, I wouldn't fight that hoe. She was like, I hit her with my car, but I wouldn't fight her. She said, I'm just a regular size bitch. She said, man, if I got into it with her, I have to pick up everything that wasn't nailed down and have to throw it at her. And somebody said something, and she was like, yeah, I have to throw the car at her too. She said, shoot, y'all better leave me alone. I ain't fighting no Meg. It was just, like I said, some of that video was just so cringy, where it was like, oh, Jesus. So then they asked her, they was like, why are you still talking about? It's July 2024 now. Why are you still talking about that lady? Listen, she's something big. She's a public figure. This whole situation was big in hip hop. So she was like, so this is why this was like one of the big things in our hip hop community. So we still talk about it. And she like went off and was saying, I told y'all, you guys coddle her. Y'all coddled Megan all the way to the ER. She was drinking online. Y'all didn't do anything. And she would use, I guess Megan came out and must have said that she was drinking excessively and nobody was saying anything about it. Like her friends and all those people around her weren't saying anything about it. And she was like, I said it. Like, she was using a lot of her rants that she was saying Megan was an alcoholic. She need help. She may need a guardian, all of this stuff to say, like, I caught it because she was crashing out online, essentially. And the attorney was like, well, how do you know? You've never met Megan a day in your life. You don't know anything about her. She's like, I do know because it came from her. Like, she said she drank too much and nobody was there for her. She's like, this stuff came from her. She was drinking online. Like, this stuff came from her. So I do know. Then she had another video where she said, I heard a prominent blogger say she has a drinking problem and she needs to go to AA. So they played that video. Then she had more audio that said she thinks she has mental health issues. She also thinks she's mentally retarded. She says she started talking about her wig. She said how big her wigs were and what was under her wig. And she said her wig looked like it got the keys to the future. I mean, she was like going off on these videos about her. She said her old nappy wigs that she wear. She called them nappy ninja wigs. That's what she called them. But she didn't say ninja. So then she said a lot of her crashing out, what she's going through is like she mentioned something on a post that guilt will do that to you. So they were asking her, well, is that referring to guilt on mental health? Are you relating that to Tori? And she's like, no, I'm not just relating that to Tori when I say guilt to do that to her while she's going through this stuff. She said, I mean, she needs some help. She loses friends. She can't keep a boyfriend. She done got shot. I mean, I'm like, she can't catch a break. She said, so I was just referencing a lot of issues related to her when I said, guilt to do that to you. So then they asked her, they said, now, Miss Cooper, if you found out that 100% Tory Lanez did it, no refuting, it is undeniable that he did it, how would you feel? She said, I would feel terrible. She said, I would bow down to Miss Pete and tell her I'm sorry. She said, but I just don't believe it went the way she said it did. She said, if I believed that she got shot, I would have advocated for her. I wouldn't have been on this other side. And that's when she started talking about her mom being in jail and different people in her family. And she talked about, black men again and what the black people go through. And then she got a little teary-eyed and she said, I wish I did believe her, but I don't. And that was the end of the direct. That was the end of the direct. And then her attorney did come up and do some cross. He did pretty good on the cross too. But let me see what some of you guys are saying. Miss HLS says she sound like a clown. Oh Lord. The same way y'all are here and care about this case, we all care, we all listen, we all had opinions. I'm discussing about how far she goes and her insights, but she's doing pretty good on the stand, and that's what matters. She comes across, what I think, and again, it's speculation. I just think that there's an assumption that how she is online is probably how she would conduct herself on the stand. And she's not. Like, you get some people, and you guys watch a bunch of trials online, and what happens with a lot of these trials online is you'll see where somebody is more comfortable with their attorney and they're very nice and respectable with their attorney. But then when it's not their attorney, they immediately get defensive. Police officers do that, and they're not very likable when they do that. So you have to be the same all the way around. She started out with Meg's attorney, and she was respectable. I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't understand what she was saying. It was very few times that she kind of got a little where you could see like a little snippy, but for the most part, she was even tone. She wasn't like just popping off, I guess is the best way to say it. So I mean, I have to say that's how it was. Now the facts are the facts. The stuff that she did online is what she did online, So they was they were using her. They were pulling up tweets. They were pulling up audio. They had her whole notebook. They had her turn in her notebooks from the trial. And then they were highlighting things she wrote in the trial. Like some of the stuff, you wrote down, right? So yeah. I don't know. She has a right to believe Tory is innocent. She has a right to believe Tory is innocent, but I think there's a way that you do it, you know? So I have people that I believe are innocent, but I'm not going to go online and just try to necessarily do it in a way that may incite people. And I think that's what they may be trying to pull out. But hey, we'll see. Meg Thee Stallion is supposed to she's supposed to testify tomorrow, so she'll probably be an all day too. April, thank you for the super sticker. Gotta love Jones, thank you. Queen Brielle, Mrs. C, Granny the Great, thank you so much. I think I got everybody else. Thank y'all. Thank y'all again for the super chats. On cross-examination, please, y'all, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed. What they did on cross was, remember in the beginning of this, I told you all one of the issues before the trial started was the juror, there was at least a juror who was confused about who all these people were. Her attorney started out identifying who everyone was, and I thought that was pretty good. They started out like, who Sunstar? Oh, that's Tori's father. Who is Daystar? And you've seen people, you've seen the jurors writing. Who is Sean Kelly? So all these names were mentioned because they were almost reliving. I felt like I was back at the trial. So they were reliving this trial, and a lot of names were thrown out, but you didn't know exactly who they were. So her attorney spent some time. Thank you, HFG. I appreciate it. Her attorney spent some time where he identified who everyone was. Who is Chelsea? Who is Kelsey? Who is this person? Who is that person? So there was literally a list where they were able to, if they were writing down, they were able to write that down. And so then he talks about the discovery issue. So he immediately addresses these deleted messages. Again, Meg's attorney started with Milagro yesterday afternoon because they did jury instruction in the morning. So they had opening and then they started with her. I don't know how long she was on the stand, but literally he did all morning and he did up until about 3 o'clock this afternoon. So her attorney got up and did a pretty short cross-examination, but I think it was effective enough. It was effective how he did it. He just got to the main points that he had a leg to stand on, So he was like, he pulled up her phone where it said there was on the phone on the screenshot where they showed the deleted message. So they're alleging, they're going to have an expert to say it was like 20,000 or thousands of emails that were deleted. Text messages that were deleted since, I guess, the lawsuit filing, I'm assuming is what they're saying. Next to Sunstar, it literally has 4. But then there is a person, it got ninja in it or something, but they got a part, but the real word, the other word, I'll just say ninja. But they have that where it's like 21,000 that's deleted. And then it's like somebody else and it's like a few deletions or whatnot. So he kind of came up and immediately was saying like, do you know what the 4 messages are? No. Were there thousands of messages that you had? She's like, no, that's impossible because I didn't even talk to them to that point of, it being thousands of messages. She said, I never had thousands of calls between Tory or his dad. So it kind of put a little, maybe some of those deletions weren't really, it wasn't that many, first of all, kind of plant the seed that maybe it wasn't that many. And then also that, because they had other conversations, it could have not even had nothing to do with Tory. Thank you, clutching my pearls. I appreciate that. So it could have had nothing to do with Tory. So they talked about that. Then they talked about the $3,000, the infamous $3,000. So her attorney brings up the fact that this was over 17 months, that this $3,000 came in. And then he was like, you weren't offered $1 million, were you? She's like, no. So it was $3,000. And then they had her explain what the money was for. So she said part of the money, it was for her birthday. She said she has 2 kids. She knows some of the money was for her kids, their birthdays. And then she said for promotion, like marketing and promotion, because he's a singer or some type of artist and he writes books and he wants to use her platform in order to promote. So those payments were sent for various things, but they were not sent in order for her to come out here windmilling and fighting or whatnot. So then they asked her about the depositions. So you did 2 depositions, right? She's like, yes. The one deposition, how long were they? So one was 7 hours, one was 2 hours. So then he goes over, and did you get tired in those depositions? Because those were lengthy. She's like, yes, very tired. Was it difficult for you because of how lengthy it was? Yes. Do you remember every word that you said in the dep? No. Do you remember every single detail? No. You've even been on the stand for the last, you've been on the stand all day from yesterday and today. Are you tired right now? Yeah. So, but are you going to, just try to pull through? Yeah, I'll pull through and do my best. So the point was to show that these lengthy, you get tired, you don't remember what you said. And so while you're using these depositions to try to attack her credibility and say, try to impeach her, it was because look how long this stuff, like what y'all expect? Like, what do you expect? She's been doing this for a minute. All right. So that was that. And then they went over the text too. Do you remember every detail of the text? Do you know every time you would delete a message, everything? She's like, no, I don't remember that. Like it's been 5-6 years and they want you to remember what a text thread meant and what the context was and all of that. She's like, no, I don't remember that. Phone records they pulled up. Those are years old. Do you recall all of those? No, I don't. So the point was just to kind of say the things that they kind of caught her up in. It was like, it's been a while. This information has been, this information is old. So then they asked her, she testified that she did not take notes to try to discredit or to lie or to discredit Miss P. That's not why she took why she took notes. She really took notes to try to get to the bottom of this situation. So they talk about the live stream. She said she does them every day. She does them for 4 hours sometimes, and she doesn't even immediately remember those. So then they get to her platform and they're like, how many people you got on Instagram? She said 40,000. So then they asked, you mentioned other people that you said talked about Megan P too. So they mentioned Joe Budden. And Joe Budden is called basically Meg a liar, says similar things about her. And he has 1.2 million followers. Then they bring up Academics. Academics, another podcaster. He has over, I think they said 5 million followers. And then Aiden Ross, he's a streamer with 6 million followers. So these individuals essentially have said the same thing and they have much bigger platforms. And they were like, and she doesn't even have 1 million followers combined. So it's almost giving coming after the little guy. That's kind of like what it was giving. So then they actually pulled up. So you know how sometimes when people call you, you can make it into like a voice to text. So they pulled up where I guess they must have like put in the name Megan. And so on this hotline she has, it was showing different times. It was at least 3 times I think they showed, and it may have been more, but it was like at least 3 that I recall being on the screen where people have called and was like, call me ASAP. I got information about Megan, to try to prove, that she does have sources and that call her on this hotline about Megan. Then they asked her, is every source legit? And she said no. She acknowledges that every source is not legit. She doesn't say that it is, that every source is legit. And so she talks. So then they asked her about the whole under oath thing. Because again, the big thing was, it seemed like Megan's attorney was trying to say that because, it don't matter. She may have said things on TV. She may have said things on Gayle King, whatever. But under oath, she told her story under oath. And you're talking about things that I guess is not under oath. So they asked her, have you known people to lie under oath? And she was like, yes, I've known people to lie under oath. So they bring up the DNA. And she said she did not leak the DNA evidence. The first person who mentioned the DNA evidence was academics. She went back in court about the DNA, and she said the prosecutor expert testified about the DNA and that Tory's DNA, and let her explain what I told y'all earlier, that Tory's DNA was not on the magazine, but it was inconclusive on the gun. It wasn't included or excluded. And that basically how she said it. She didn't mean to lie when she said that he was excluded from the gun. She said that was her interpretation of what she heard in court. So she said that a lot of the deposition clips were taken out of context. She said part of the lack of credibility came from Meg because she originally said she didn't get shot. So you kind of started your credibility being a problem, is what was elicited. And then they bring up that screenshot again, the shade room from the beat, whatever his name is, Meg's producer, who tweeted and it was reposted on the shade room saying this goofy arse ninja say he ain't shoot her, and they literally have matched the bullets. And so they asked her, is there a difference between bullets and fragments? She said, yeah. So they said, well, that post wasn't even legit. Like, basically, they were trying to pull out that there was no testimony that there were bullets, there were fragments, and there's a difference. So even that post wasn't even the truth. So that person who said that wasn't even 100% accurate, because there's a difference between the two. We almost done. Then this was interesting. So there was a video. Milagro's attorney put up the video of Meg in the hospital, the body cam. And he was going to play it, but apparently there must have been some issues where it may have been an issue of contention on whether it should be played or not be played. And so he ended up just forfeiting it. And then they we were like, huh? Why they didn't play the video? But then it was addressed like after the fact. And I guess it may be an issue that they're going to have to address later, or maybe tomorrow if they don't figure it out on whether they're going to allow it to be admitted or not. And it was her laying in the hospital bed. Some of you guys may have seen it, but they were going to play that, but it ended up not playing it. After the discussion with the other side, they didn't play it. Then they showed again the text again where Tory was like, probably, P-R-O-L-L-Y, Meg never gonna talk to me again. Again, I'm sorry. And this was like 6 hours after the shooting. And then they asked her in the text, does Tory apologize for shooting anyone in this text? And, of course, she said, no, that's not what the text said. So they pull out the actual text and say, does he ever really apologize and say, I'm sorry I shot you? It's like, no. So she can basically interpret it the way that she wants to interpret it. So she gives all the different reasons again on why she thinks that she wasn't credible. She said the police asked her directly, was she shot? She said no, she stepped on glass. She said the hospital maintained that story when she was at the hospital. And at that time, her excuse was she wanted to protect Tory. But the story was she stepped on glass until her manager came. So that's what she said. The story was she stepped on glass, and then allegedly, I guess her manager came and she testified that the story changed. And she also said she never said that Meg committed perjury, but she has evidence that she ain't tell the truth. She said on certain things, she just didn't tell the truth. So then that was pretty much the end of the test. Well, Yeah, that was the end of the testimony. And then the court asked, was there redirect? They didn't want to redirect her after that cross. And that's when they read Kelsey's testimony, like live testimony, into the transcript. It was like 15 minutes of the testimony of them asking her questions about the shooting, and when you told us at the police station A, B, C, D, and E, didn't you say this? Isn't that true? Going through all of the stuff, reliving all of our trauma that had to deal with that whole testimony when we were there. And they read that the last 15 minutes. Everybody was like, so anyway, tomorrow they're supposed to start with Megan. I think she's supposed to start testifying tomorrow morning, bright and early at 9:00. So we see what she has to say. Now, we're not saying Meg the most credible person, though. For real. Meg went on national TV with Gil King interview and said never dated Tory. Come to find out, her and Tory were humping and bumping at Courtney Makeup Center. Yeah, she mentioned that too. That's why she said that it was but see, this is what was interesting, was that Meg's team, the attorney was saying, like, basically Meg explained why she lied. So it was almost like, but that wasn't good enough when she explained that her reasoning for lying was the George Floyd and how they do black people and all of that. And so that was her reasoning, because of course they had to get in front of it at the trial. The prosecutor straight up are the one that brought it out. Didn't you say A, B, C, D, and E? Was that true when you said it? Like, that was brought up at trial. So it was almost like they wanted, I guess, Milagro to believe her when she gave her explanation as to why she lied. Milagro, like, I don't care what she said. Oh my gosh. I'm not doing this. with her anyway. Thank you so much, Cupcake. Good to see you. Thank you. You said they got Millie in a lie. She literally said Meg committed perjury. I feel like, well, I don't know if they pulled that up or if they pulled something that specifically said perjury. I don't know. This case is weak and needs to be tossed. Milagro covered the full trial. She was very right to her opinion, no matter what the jury verdict was. She does have every right to her opinion, but it's not just about the opinion. I think it's they're alleging that it was going beyond that, and it was being presented as a matter of fact, I guess, is their argument. And then also, aside from that, what was it? The whole deep fake. So yeah. Thank you so much. Tory's dad should have left Milagro alone. No, he came off like he was trying to help. That's Milagro platform, though. It would have been nice if she moved smarter and said, no thanks, love. Let's talk after his trial. I think it was more so of you getting exclusives. Like, I think a lot of the stuff is when you're on YouTube, you start trying to get the exclusives on everything or whatnot. So, yeah. And just to let you know, I ain't never talked to no judge. It's the whole story behind that, and I ain't got nothing to do with it. So, my name just come into stuff for no reason, and it's ridiculous. Milagro boasted about riding in the family car, sitting with the family, and by doing this, she established the line between reporter and journalist, commentator, and biased fan. Well, she acknowledged she's not a journalist, and that was a conversation I had with some journalists, and just, what is it? It's a difference between, I think they said the definition with media, when you're media, you just report the facts, and I guess otherwise they're saying you're a commentator, and so they don't want to give you that type of protection. Journalists have a certain type of protection. So, for example, before you sue someone that is a journalist, I think in Florida, you're supposed to give them notice and all of that. There's some type of protocol. So that is one of the things that they were arguing on, whether I guess she was a journalist, but they used again her own words where she said she wasn't a journalist. So again, a lot of us will do opinion and commentary in theory when you're the news, even though we know we can go to certain news stations to get certain angles. Yeah. You said academics should have been the first one sued. He's the one that started campaign against Meg. He was the one leaking information. I don't know. I've heard he was supposed to. I heard that he may testify actually. So. Mm-hmm. So there's that. Thank y'all so much. My eyes are burning. I'm so tired. This is just a lot. It's a whole lot. Well, I think you should be careful what you say anyway. It's okay to have an opinion. I think, well, it's more so if it's a reckless disregard of its truth and how you present it as if it's a fact. So do I think that, I mean, it's interesting. It's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what the jury says on this. Again, the deep fake was more so yesterday, and more people were telling me, like, I don't know about that one. Like, I don't know how that's gonna pan out, or how she has a defense to that one, because I guess allegedly she told people to go over to her likes when it came to that video. So it was considered promoting under the statute. But as far as this, them trying to find a defamation is, yeah. Yeah. You know, you can start every statement with, in my opinion, and allegedly, and it's not necessarily true, because some people will say, in my opinion, it's case law on that too in certain states. Some people will say, in my opinion, but they present it in a way that you still think is real, like it's a fact. You know, in my opinion, but I mean, this document right here is say this, and it got their signature. You know what I'm saying? Like, sometimes you can still do, or people that say everything I say is alleged. It's all alleged. It doesn't necessarily protect you, especially when you have some type of doubt of whether it is true or not. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. But that's it. You said the law don't care about who was sleeping with someone. Her sex life is not on trial. I'm not understanding why that comment came up. Did I make it seem like it was? I don't understand. That was supposed to be what started everything, allegedly. That's what they go with in the car. If you follow the case. That is what is alleged, that this argument ensued because Kelsey didn't know that Meg was messing with Tori, and Tori decided he wanted to tell her that time in that moment. That was what's alleged. But yeah. You said you can't be the source and rely on an alleged. Yeah. And it was interesting talking to some journalists today, because they were like, they've gotten certain intel and insight, and because regardless to how good it would have been for them and what exposure it would have gave, they were like, yeah, nah, like I can't verify that. So it's a no for me, you know? So yeah. So if Kelsey is the one who didn't know, why was he apologizing to Meg? I mean, that's the whole thing is, you have to look at it like this too, guys. That jury was not in the trial. So a lot of us, like I sat in the trial, many of us have talked about the trial over and over again. The trial has been talked about online. So because of that, we know. So when they talked about this stuff, I knew who Sean Kelly was. I knew who Sunstar was. I know who Daystar is. I know all of this. And I think that some of this information was being presented that wasn't necessarily the way it was at trial necessarily. But I mean, how do they really know that unless you really pulling it up and proving that that ain't how it happened? So it was just, I think the way she tried to put forth on the stand, it made you think, okay, maybe she did believe that, blah, 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 based on this. But the problem is they have all these videos of how it was being relayed, but we'll see, y'all. We'll see. Yes, can report it and say this information is not verified yet. However, this is what's being alleged by various sources online. If it's online and you're not even breaking the news, you're kind of a secondary source. That's like you putting out there what TMZ or somebody puts out. We're talking about you coming out with, certain news or whatnot. So yeah. Mm-hmm. You said go her way and shit. I think it went too far, Tyron. I don't know. I don't know if it's gonna be, can we just shake hands and you walk away and you walk away? I don't think it's gonna go that way. But they're basically putting up a argument that this trial happened 2-3 years ago, and that is your biggest topic. Until this lawsuit happened, I don't think she really talks about her anymore. But why are you consistently talking about her? So her argument is, I'll talk about what other people talk about, regardless to what happened. I'm not just targeting you because of Tory. You're a celebrity that has different issues, and I'm talking about all your issues. It don't matter what they are. So she's trying to put on she's trying to convince the jury, from what I gather, that, hey, listen, it ain't because of this and because they're paying me to do this and to continue to do this. It's just because it's news out here. This lady is a celebrity. And so over and over again, this is what it is. Thank you so much for being a member. I appreciate you, L Essence. Yeah. So the jury I know it's only 2 Black people on there. It's like one. Yes, it's I forgot what the makeup was. Megan Cuniff had she had the makeup. I have to count again on how many women and men. It's almost split. Yeah. She's gagged, so she can't talk about Megan, Tory, or the case. And it helps her too, because you don't want to put everything you say is going to be used against you. They're literally pulling up every tweet, video. They got all your texts. I mean, it was one point. And that was another thing too that her attorney brought up, was that even though she turned over her whole phone, then apparently she realized she had backup on her computer. So she turned over her computer when she realized that, even though they didn't, it wasn't nothing they asked for. She just realized she had a backup. So she turned it over to them. She said she gave all her login information so they could log into all her social media. And so they were just trying to show that she wasn't trying to hide the ball. She gave them a lot of information. So that was kind of their point. You said he was for everybody. Megan Kelsey didn't care. He was trying to get with college. We losing sight of the whole picture here. So anyway, like I said, I'll be back to talk about what happens tomorrow. Hopefully. I don't see what Meg. I can't see it being a bunch of text and audio and video. I think it'll be interesting just to see. She did do intentional infliction of emotional distress, I think. So I wonder if she's gonna get into maybe how this has affected her and all of that. So we'll see, y'all. If you guys have not hit the like button, make sure that you do so. I'm about to eat and then I'm going to sleep. My eyes are burning because y'all know we just got here like really late last night. As soon as we got here, it's almost time to get up and go to the court. But I'll do it all over again for y'all. Thank you so much for everything. I appreciate the super chats and also the memberships. I'm gonna go into the member. If I don't go sleep tonight, I'll do it tonight. Tell y'all a little extra stuff, and then, or maybe in the morning. But I owe y'all. I said it in the chat. In the membership, I owe y'all. so y'all can know what really happened. Cause I knew it. I said somehow my name gonna come into something, and I ain't did nothing. I just was sitting there. So, but anyway, I'm gonna talk to y'all later. Have a good night.